welcome to Trends with Friends, where everybody does this right now. Come on. Let's go. Come on, big movie guys. What?
I'll give you one.
I don't know what you're
That
doing.
might have been
Howard.
worse than Thad Nixon right there. And it's really nice to see Phil wearing something with a logo or a color or something, just to denote that's not just him, his head popping out of an AI sweatshirt. What do we got on there?
It's the Whip Snakes, baby. It's professional lacrosse league. Whip Snakes, yeah.
All right, buddy. Good to see you. Checking my sound. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. We are live, Trends with Friends. It is April. It is tax day. As you can see, I look a little lighter today. Emptied all my back pockets. And I'm back to, it looks like I'm on that drug no acetol again now that I've paid taxes. All right, we got some special guests here, but let's get right to the guests. My good friends who made a movie with me. Well, they made the movie. I just threw myself in there. Chris Temple, Zach. I'm not even going to say your last name. How do you say your name, Zach?
Ingrasci.
Ingrasci. And you know, your hair goes the exact opposite as JC at All Star Charts. So it's pretty cool. You know, if we had him on with JC, people's eyes would freak out. Next up, we're going to talk about their Ethereum movie. We made a movie together called This Is Not Financial Advice. The boys are back with a great documentary on Ethereum. Phil has some very hot takes on Vitalik that we were talking about before. That really upset even your mom, Phil. So we're excited to get those takes. And over in the bottom left square, representing intelligence in this podcast, is Michael Parekh, representing people that think, and the AI whisperer, as we call him. And then over in the top right corner, he's here to shrink us. He's here not to belittle us, but to make us feel like, we're somebody. And he's picked me off the carpet many times, and then rolled me up and thrown me out on the street, which sometimes I wish I was just left on the carpet. Phil Pearlman, Dr. Phil.
I'm trying to get canceled today. I'm trying to say something to get canceled. That's my goal.
Maybe throw up your volume a little bit, fucknut. And then in the middle,
I'm trying to get canceled.
And then in the middle, representing millennials, looking a little bit like Vlad Tenev today, with just a little bit shorter hair. Representing, he wishes the wealth of Vlad at Robinhood. Tom Bruni, who runs our content at Stocktwits, he's going to be bringing. We've asked him every week to bring 5 charts, and he's on a week-to-week basis based on these 5 charts. And we've invited him back because he bowed to my knee last week. He took it like a man. He took it like an intern would. Tom Bruni, welcome. How's it feel?
Yeah, thanks, Howard. My paycheck cleared last week, so I'm all set for another week. Excited to be
I
here.
know if something can clear, you may call it clear. I object. It's so weird when I sign the paychecks each week, I file an objection. No one ever. I don't know what court they go up in, but all the paychecks, no matter how many objections I file, Phil, they go up. All right. Let's do some Stocktwits housekeeping business. Pull up the cash tag awards. Everybody's going to be here. It's a I don't know. It's about April 30th, so that would be about 15 days away. Hoping everybody spends their first paycheck post taxes to come hang. That'll be about 400 people. One of the most exciting things is I got one of my favorite comics who, there he is, Francis, who's a freaking hysterical Harvard guy. Has been fired from Barstool, been hired back from Barstool, just does great, young, mean, on point comedy. We've got a couple of roasters in the audience, and we're presenting some great awards. And should just be a fun night of booze. Supposedly I'm paying. So I think that's another reason people should show. Hopefully, Chris and Zach, you guys are in town.
Free.
So
if you're paying, I'd love to.
Yeah, I'm paying. It's half a drink free. So it gets you started is what our tagline is. Just something to get you started. So that's April 30th. Phil will be there. Bruni will be there. Michael will be there. Some luminaries from FinTech will be there. I think we've invited one grifter per 10 people. So in this case, we just invited Chamath. That's the equivalent of 20 grifters in one. These are inside jokes. All right.
Do we have a category best penny stock pumper?
No, those were all awarded on Twitter. I mean, we tend to kick those people off and they scurry back to Twitter. I mean, here's the thing about investing, and we talk about trends here. That's an everlasting trend, right? People wanting to
best meme coin rug. How about that one? Best rug.
I think the SEC is in charge of those ones.
Yeah, it's hard for us to be the prover of those, Phil. Is it okay if we get along with the show right now, or are you just going to?
I'm sorry.
It's like you're in charge of
I'm just thinking of him not. I'm telling you, I'm trying to get canceled today. Maybe I'll get canceled.
We have some funny awards.
Then I don't have to do the internet anymore.
Serious awards for some of the best people that we think both educate and entertain on Stocktwits and FinTwit. All right, let's get right to it. The theme this week, obviously, is the dumbest bear market in history, the tariff war. I mean, we could argue. I'm tired of arguing about it. Let's just look at prices and what's really happening, because policy is being set whether we like it or not. And then obviously China versus US. Take it away, Phil. If we're not talking about those three things, and AI is part of that, then you're missing the point. That's just arguing for the sake of arguing.
Yeah, so we're going to get to the most interesting chart in the world now, but it's just so incredible, Chris Temple, to have you on, and Zach. I'm not even going to say Ingrasci. Great to have you on. Temple, dude, you're just like I'm a fan forever. Great guy, incredibly successful, amazing movie maker. The movie you made, I'm sure this Vitalik movie is going to be great. The movie you made about Glauber, the Dogecoin millionaire. I mean, that is a great flick. Everybody go watch that one too.
It's on our YouTube channel. It's on our YouTube channel, so everybody can go to Stocktwits YouTube channel and watch it. It's phenomenal. And so we're gonna talk to you guys in just a bit. Most interesting chart in the world, net new highs. Let's just jump right onto that one. Markets are happening, right? Everybody's freaking. Some people, it's a divided country, right? I mean, that's where we are now. It's just what it is. No judgments. But what we have here is we have net new highs have plummeted to a level that has been exceeded only twice in the past quarter century. So this is very significant. Howie, you most interesting chart in the world, your take. Do we have that photo of you with the most interesting chart guy? We should probably pull that up. But what's going on here? I mean, this is a reflection of the market. Now people are seeing the death cross or whatever, but this one I almost says it better. I'm going to let Tom, our guest for the day, and because his job is always on the line here, start, because he's a little more technical than me, and this can mean many. It's, again, like any chart, this is just one piece of data, but it has a huge amount of data in it. So, before I hand it off to Tom, I'll say I look at these things as small data, and Mike, who's spent a career at Goldman Sachs and studying fundamentals and taking companies public and understands the market, he'll have some great points here. But this to me is why prices are so important, right? At times when the world, and we see it on Twitter, whether it's the masters, but really tariffs and macro right now, everybody becomes a fundamental analyst. That's what happens in a global macro world, right? But what they're fighting about is stuff that they have no control over. We've already voted for who the president is, and he's already picked his cabinet, and he's pretty set in his ways, right? So the fundamentals are the prices, right? The markets are the fundamental, the actual prices. So Tom, knowing all that, what are the prices saying? What's the big data saying here?
Yeah, so this is a great look at kind of what's happening in the market in the aggregate. This is the way that you can kind of frame your approach to the market, right? So if we're in an environment where you're seeing a lot more new lows than new highs, right? Like that typically is not a great environment to be investing on the long side. So what you're seeing here is basically the amount of new lows. I believe this is on the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. Hitting their lowest levels since 2008, 2020. So we're seeing extreme levels of new lows, which indicates that people are selling in mass, and sentiment overall is kind of near peak fear. The way I kind of think about this is the market moves in waves, right? So we've had this big wave to the downside, and now we're starting to see things kind of clear up. The waves are settling down a bit. And this is when, if you're a longer term investor, right, when you see massive fear coming into the market, this is when you want to start looking for opportunities. You want to find, you want to be buying that fear. Warren Buffett says, buy when there's blood in the streets. You're not going to get the exact bottom, but a lot of people are looking right now and seeing this fear and saying, we're down 20% off the highs. There's a lot of uncertainty. Let me see what opportunities are out there.
Michael?
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, to me, this chart is just astonishing as a fundamental analysis type of person looking at facts on the ground from a bottom-up point of view for the next, not just for the next few days, but next probably 2 or 3 years, if not longer. There is way too much optimism in this chart. For this to have that amount of blip for this fundamental nuclear button that has been hit on a global economy, what it literally means when, almost every major bank is calling for a recession, anywhere from 40% to 60, 70, 80%. I think people have forgotten what a recession is. It's 2 down quarters at least, and the global implications of this. So this is 20% to me. This is just a where do I buy the dip kind of an environment from everyone has been, this whole generation has been so trained by the dip. Things only go up, momentum, etc., that they're failing to see the fundamental changes. Now, normally I'm not a bear, right? You guys know me. I'm a perennial optimist, especially driven by technology. And I've written a bunch of things of late that the technology industry, as we've known it, is so dented with the gearing of the global supply chain. All the hopes that we've had, robotics, electronic cars, all these wonderful things with AI, we've postponed them for at least 5 years if we don't correct this thing. It's not going. It's going to 0-0 trade with Europe. It doesn't do it. We've got to fix this U.S.-China thing that feels so far away. So anyway, so this chart to me is very optimistic right now. There's a lot of optimism in my view. Thank you.
Too optimistic, Phil. We're going to.
It's too optimistic. This blip should have been far lower. I lived through 87. That was 25-26% in one day. We've not seen anything close to that. I think we will surpass today. VIX, it hovers between 30, 40 something. We need to blow past 80, which was the last 2 highs on the VIX, right? The pandemic and the housing crisis. We are way too optimistic right now as a world, in my view, relative to the fundamentals that are going on a bottom-up basis. Sorry.
After hearing that, hang on.
So if you are not a drinker, and if you don't use drugs, now is a great time.
Here's the thing about Mike. He's old. He's washed up. He's a nobody. Sorry, that was just a Twitter comment. Sorry, Mike, that wasn't me. Here's the thing about Mike. He is a perennial optimist. Why is he a perennial optimist? Technology. He's been right. Right. So again, before we all joke about this, there's so many ways to read every chart. So Tom has a great take. Right. When the new lows explode, you should be looking. You've got to train yourself to be looking to buy, not sell. But then you have to not in a bounce, right? And it's been rather weak. In the VIX, the oversold condition is what you have right now is a place for bulls and bears to argue around trades, around price, right? we now at least have a place where shorts can, where longs can lean against the lows of last week and the week before when the VIX hit 60, right? And to give you an example, last week when we did the show, Robinhood was 30. Today it's 45. Not only is today Robinhood 45, which is 50% higher, Webull snuck out through a SPAC, which is doing 1/10 the revenue of Robinhood and is trading at the same valuation of Robinhood. So I think what Mike is saying is true. Two things can be true. You can see this kind of washout in new lows, but also see that there's literally been no. I mean, I was betting on the Masters all weekend on Robinhood. Webull's trading at 50 billion through a SPAC. It's a Chinese company. So people have not even, the youngins or whoever is trading this haven't even flinched at a VIX 60. So, and then we have the issue of the policy is not going to change, right? I went back and watched Elon in November on Joe Rogan because someone shared a link about, and Elon was talking about, he's anti-tariffs, that you have to be this is Elon. This is before the stock. This might have been in the midst of the stock run from 250 to 500. And Elon's on Joe Rogan and he's saying, tariffs are really, he's talking about what Mike's talking about. You got millions of pounds of goods in transition between hundreds of countries, right? And no one knows where everything is. You got to check in every second, right? We haven't got blockchain marketing, blockchain tracking. And he says you have to be, this is Elon Musk, the least thoughtful guy at the moment, saying you have to be very thoughtful about tariffs. Flash forward to today. Are we being thoughtful about tariffs with probably our biggest enemy? So these are words right out of Elon's mouth. And guess where Elon's stock is trading today? The same price that it was trading at. So again, you have to really look at certain markers. So I think the chart's phenomenal because if we just to pull it up quickly, there's a lot of data in this. If we could pull that chart up quickly, and then we'll end it with Phil. If this is 2020, right, and we've got these spikes down, it was a great opportunity. If this is 2012, 2016, but you have to go and assume with this spike that we're in some kind of bigger crisis, right, which hasn't been resolved, which is tariffs, right, and the great unknowns. And the markets hate unknowns, and they hate bad policy. We can't quite yet decide if the policy is going to happen. So remember that huge spike. If your time frame's 5-6 years, I think you're fine. If your time frame's 6 months, we don't know yet, right? And those spikes down in 2020 and 28 were 20 to 50% more. So you can still lose a lot of money trying to fade the VIX and fade the panic. So you just have to understand your time frame here. If your time frame 6 to 10 years, yes, nothing wrong with starting last week, but understand that Robinhood at 30 versus Robinhood at 45, Palantir at 70 versus Palantir at 100. Those moves have already happened, and if you blink, that's a big percentage difference. And a lot of what Mike says, a lot of the froth and optimism, because people are just yelling about this stuff online. They're not really actually believing still. And if you were to look at the bond market, the dollar market, the Forex market, the market still believes that these tariffs are going to be a mess. So I'd be very careful. Phil, psychologically, what do you see here? And then we'll move on.
Yeah, people are very poor at processing information, especially when that information goes against their worldview and is sort of shocking to the system. And right now we're in this sort of state of disbelief, to your point and to Michael's point. We're in a state of disbelief where we're not fully recognizing the significance of what's going on around us. And so that's only going to be sort of, mentally digested over a period of time. And the implications are only going to be mentally digested over a period of time as it plays out. Unfortunately, we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to US China a little bit later, but let's get on to Zach and Chris. Thank you guys for coming here. It's a big day for you guys. You guys are here on drop day, right? You guys are dropping your new film, Vitalik, Autistic Sex Freaks Somehow. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. That's not
You're
really the
good.
name of the movie.
Canceled already.
It's such a mean thing for me to say. What's that?
That's the name his parents chose for the movie. Go with it.
Vitalik and Ethereum Story, dropping on Apple TV and Amazon Prime as we speak. Welcome, guys. Why don't you just tell us about the new film?
Yeah. Thanks for having us on. I think before we start, I have to say, making a film with Howard is amazing. You have to take all this shit, but I've never had an EP be more in your ring than Howard. So it's an amazing experience. So this, obviously this is financial advice. This is actually how we kind of ran into Vitalik where we're making that. And this film became, if you know Vitalik, most of your audience does, right? The 19-year-old who created Ethereum, sparked this $1 trillion bit industry. And the film follows his journey from this kind of quiet, brilliant, genius teenager to basically the reluctant leader of crypto. At this point, I mean, he's what everyone looks to as like the one shining example here. And so I can tell you, making a film about a billionaire who lives out of a 40-liter backpack is a crazy experience. We went to Ukraine with him. We were, in Montenegro for his Zuzulu pop-up city. We were in Colombia. We were all over the world with him. And it was this film is kind of that roller coaster of 2 years between 2021 and 2023.
Amazing. And so what's the big takeaway? Like, is he a good guy? Is he a genius? Is he, what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think the
and
question
you have to give people context compared to me.
We're not crypto evangelists. We're filmmakers, right? We haven't been in the crypto world all that long. I think for us, the question was more about looking at technology and the role that these founders play in coding their values, their blind spots, and their beliefs into the systems they're building. And I think, we were watching Vitalik as an example of this. If he's like kind of the anti Elon Musk, big personality figure that we've come to know and expect of a lot of the tech leaders. And I think that was a welcome change to us, that he really is a builder, a thinker at his core. He's not one of these big tech leaders. And I think he wrestled with that throughout his whole time leading Ethereum, and still does, of, he wants to lead a decentralized movement, but how do you do that effectively? He's not the one who's going to go out there and be on the front pages of every newspaper. He has to kind of lead through some of this soft power, encouraging folks behind the scenes. And, we had I think if we look at these creators, it helps us better understand the values of these new technologies, whether that's AI or crypto or anything else that's coming out.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think, a lot of people are mad at Vitalik right now because he's not at the White House with, pitching Ethereum to Trump. But this is who this guy is. And I think the film examines where he grew up and where he came from, and he's such a product of that. I mean, he grew up in Russia until he was 6. His family fled Russia because Putin was coming to power in 2000, and his family had already lost a lot of their money in kind of the transition from the Soviet Union to Putin's Russia. And his parents both were technologists. There's this very anti-authoritarian kind of values to him, and so that's why he created this decentralized technology that he truly believes in decentralization from a experiential reality. Then he had an amazing life growing up in Canada, kind of allowed him to have this very optimistic take. I think he's truly a technology optimist. And that's kind of driven his perspective throughout all of this. I do think his one blind spot and the conflict is what he just cannot. Interpersonal conflict is really hard for him. Yeah. So throughout his experience, you see in the founding of Ethereum, the hardest moments for him is when there's these moments where he has to step up and lead, and that creates conflict.
Is
Yeah,
he
I
as
think
committed
that's
as he
gonna-
ever? Go ahead.
I just think that'll be the ultimate problem here, as we've seen in the real world. Is I think we have a president who has had it put in his head that decentralization is the only way. I mean, he's running the country in a way that is bad for centralization. Other than his power, it's he ran a Trump coin, right? He ran it on the Solana blockchain through. Yeah, we're all nodding our heads, but I'm saying Trump, in his own twisted way, has his version of what this is. That you can be an ultimate ruler and have decentralized things around you. So someone's gotten in Trump's head, right? And I don't know who it is, but if we look at Vitalik and we look at Canada and we look at certain of these, kick past the buck, kumbaya, no leadership. And I think we see this if we were to pull up, and we will, the Solana versus Ethereum, just look at price and look at relative strength. And you can see Solana trading at the best it's ever done against Ethereum, right? So the market's voting, right? Like we can, so Vitalik's not going to change, right? Or the market's saying you better, and we'll see if he's right in the long term. But right now the market's saying, you know what, we need something different to get our rocks off with speed and blockchain, and Solana is winning. We don't know if it's based on true management style or product, but it's probably a combination of both. And so it will be interesting. But I mean, what a great you don't know when you make the movie. Like when we made our movie, when you started this is not financial advice, we didn't know the market would round trip and the Dogecoin millionaire would be such a dramatic story. So when you started this movie, he was on top of the world. Ethereum was probably $3,000-$4,000 a coin, and now it's $1,500 a coin, and or $1,600 a coin. And that's what happens. People get mad when they lose money. They have very little patience.
And Howard, we were filming this film simultaneously while we were filming This Is Not Financial Advice. So Vitalik had to wrestle with the same, what you call degenerate economy that we saw and we covered so well in This Is Not Financial Advice. And I think that was one of the first moments that he decided he needed to come out of the shadows and be a bit more of a leader and speak out against people buying $3 million monkeys as NFTs, and to speak out against some of the speculation and gambling behavior. And I think that became, a real moment and fight for him, where I don't think he has this great quote in the film where he says, if all Ethereum becomes is a tool for people to gamble tokens with one another, that's a huge missed opportunity. And I think that's a great quote. I think for him, he's like, all of the price fluctuations in market conversation is a bit of a distraction from what he's trying to do, which is at his core. He's a builder and a thinker. And, I think you get to understand him when you go to think about him as a 7-year-old, right? We met his dad. We go back through his life in the film. When he first came to the US, his dad talks about how his favorite when he first came to Canada, his dad talks about how his favorite toy at 7 was the computer. His favorite program was Excel. He built a 100-page document full of charts and graphics, charting the economies and energy structures of a fictitious world for bunnies. He's a world-building thinker, and that was at 7 years old.
When he was 16,
and I think that's what we forget.
When he was at 16, he was working next to Yoni at eToro in Tel Aviv, and he built Ethereum there. Yoni paid him a couple Bitcoin. That's a great story when we have Yoni on. Yoni paid him a couple Bitcoin. I remember Yoni WhatsApping me and said, Yoni called it color coins, which was what his original idea for. He wanted a multi-chain coin, and Yoni called it colored coins. Vitalik, who was 16 at the time and an intern at eToro in the summer, said, "No, I want to do it this way." And Yoni paid him 2 Bitcoin for Vitalik to go and start Ethereum. So that's
compare that to what you were doing at 16, Howard, right? Like you and Phil, what were you guys doing?
I'll show you. Hang on.
Oh.
Give me a bathroom. Hang on one sec. Here I go. This is me at 16. Okay, I'm back. It's all over. That was 16, day one. All right. So Mike, you had a question. Then I want to talk about the actual industry a little bit. And then where's the movie? The movie tonight, which is a great thrill because I've done one movie with you and it's very hard to get picked up. So you guys got it picked up by Amazon and Apple?
Yeah, so we've done some distribution with it. We started actually by releasing the film on chain with this a couple months ago, so people could actually watch it on the blockchain, bring it right to the people. And now we've been rolling it out. This is the first time it's available globally, mainstream, with Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and Vimeo. So it's available globally in any country. Yeah, and it's still, like you hit it on the nose. The independent documentary industry is broken. It's very difficult to get these stories that aren't just salacious true crime bullshit to get to people's screens. And I think it takes a lot of people being creative. It takes supporters like you, Howard, saying, hey, no, this is an important story for people to learn from and be entertained by, to get these films out there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, no, I think, Chris, what you said in terms of Vitalik's ambition, that, if this is just used for meme stuff and coins and so on, we have failed. But that's one of the problems with every tech innovation over the last few decades. The initial aspirations are always amazing by the inventors, right? I mean, I remember, with the Google guys, when they did the first prospectus, there's the whole business about don't be evil, and you can talk about it, the PC, Steve Jobs' bicycle of the mind, etc. My point is, technology ends up being used in the initial years for a lot of both nonsensical things, and it's almost always orthogonally opposite to what the aspirations were initially. Today, social media, I mean, and the founders who embrace this and become billionaires and just become, they become the Mark Zuckerbergs, and they become the Elons of the world, who just embrace the dual use aspect of the technology, and how it can be used for good and bad and frivolity, etc. And crypto and Ethereum, and I love the way he starts Ethereum relative to how the other aspects of crypto have evolved. So there's a long road ahead, and I hope he gets all the credit and kudos and his aspirations for this. But I found it very compelling the way you just said that is his, the fundamental quote that you took away from the movie, and it's great to hear.
Yeah, we have some great technologists in the film. Tim O'Reilly is a great interview in the film, and he makes this point exactly that, technologies rarely end up the same way as their founders intend them. And that's part of the challenge. And I think what the real journey of this film is for anybody who's interested in tech, to watch a guy like Vitalik struggle with how to navigate those changes, those unpredictable use cases of his tech, and figure out, I mean, in many ways, wrestling with the unintended consequences of his tech.
Unintended. Money corrupts. We saw it with Twitter. I mean, listen, we've seen this through history, but it really took center stage with Twitter, right? It really, YouTube sold, right? And they sold because the technology, the government said we couldn't handle it, right? It was cheating, or the media companies. So they were forced to sell, right? Because they couldn't afford the losses. Twitter was the first company that really was in the consumers. And I guess ICQ maybe, Mike, but that's just dating myself and you. But really, money corrupted, right? And it's really, the founders do have a choice, right? Like at Stocktwits, we stayed true to our mission. We're not going to necessarily be $1 billion company, but Norm, it goes to how you grew up in culture. I grew up with Cheers, right? Sam Malone and the whole kooky bar. When you came into the bar, everybody knew your name. And the world of tech changed with the cloud and the mobile phone. And I tend to disagree with these like Jack and Vitalik. That's so naive, right? Because he was working for Yoni when he built this, right? He built this while he was employed by somebody else. So all these guys rewrite history in the way they want. And Yoni's not mad. Yoni's just got a great story amongst them. That's what makes him a legendary founder and swashbuckler. It's another great story about a tech freak, Yoni, excited about the blockchain. And history gets rewritten many times. And I find that all these tech guys that like, woe is me, and this didn't have to happen, really should be looking at themselves and going, wait, I'm going to release this. What is my plan? What is my business model for this? If you release tech without a business model, you know what's going to happen? It's going to get fucked up because money will come in eventually to tell you which way to go. And we could argue about this all day. I'd love to talk about if Mike, I know you had your hand up if you wanted to just throw something in there. Are you okay?
No,
Mike?
only because Chris, you mentioned Tim O'Reilly. I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
You know, like the best books on technology, his publishing company, extraordinary. And talking about technology, David Brooks, who's an op-ed guy, he just did you guys could just Google it. He wrote a thing called "Producing Something This Stupid is the Achievement of a Lifetime," and he's talking about the current environment, etc. But he makes a key point that technology, mobile, iPhones, etc. Everyone talks about doom scrolling and all this. But he basically is citing a whole bunch of data that whether it's young, medium, or old, we've all lost the ability to reason because we don't read as much. We don't, we're so inundated with input, etc. This is an implication of technology that no one foresaw, that we would be so compelled to just constantly be thinking, just looking at things rather than thinking, that we are literally can't think as much anymore. And my reason I bring it up is because Tim O'Reilly, I mean, when he and I used to have interactions on this stuff, it was about reading, and it was his whole life is around reading. And he was one of the first boosters. He invented Web 2.0, and it was one of the biggest boosters of this. And so, if you talk to him today in the context of where we are in social media and TikTok and how we just watch YouTube videos all day, it's just it's affected our brain. Specifically in terms of just we are addicted to dopamine and we can't process, and these are all just implications of technology that no one foresaw 20 years ago, and we were all there with the founders.
That's what
and
made
these
Web
are the
2
second, third, fourth level
very,
impact that we don't think about.
That's what made Web 2 very exciting. It was an era for young entrepreneurs, from Jack Dorsey to Zuckerberg to Vitalik to Yoni to Vlad to the Airbnb guy to even Travis. These were young titans, right? It wasn't like they had to go kill people like in There Will Be Blood and leave people buried under the ground. Maybe they did. All right. The more important thing, and I know we're off topic, Phil, we will get back to this, but let's just quickly talk. Netflix reported earnings. These guys know the hardships of dealing with. I'm fascinated by this subject, and since they're on, selfishly, I want to twist it a little bit, Fred. And I didn't warn you, but let's just talk about Netflix, Amazon, HBO, what it's like, because you're an entrepreneur at some level, even though you're a documentarist. I came on board, and the goal is to try and make a buck, right? We try and spend as little on a movie because we know it's a nightmare. And you're dealing with the markets the same as I'm dealing with markets. Documentaries can be hot. And in COVID, they were hot because people needed content, and now they're ice cold. So let's just talk a little bit about the process of selling this, because you guys are entrepreneurs yourself, and we can talk all we want about Vitalik and what he wanted. What did you want, and what has been the ups and downs of because really what you want is eyeballs, but you also want your investors to make money. How much should it cost to make this movie? 1.5, 2 million?
Yeah, so this one was an interesting setup where, so when we started this, I don't know if we told you this, Howard, but
I'll go quick, Phil. But okay, when you started this, yes,
so
we
initially were going to raise a little bit of money for the development of the project and then try to sell it, right? We put up a crowd fund to the Ethereum community by selling an NFT of the cover art.
Bad idea.
In 72 hours, but this is July 2021.
Yeah.
In July of 2021, it raises 1.9 million in 72 hours as the most successful documentary crowd fund in its history.
This is cool.
Wow.
Obviously, this was a hot moment in time, but it's allowed us to make this film without the restraints that would have happened with being on a partnership with somebody like Netflix up front, because they would have.
That's the power right there.
They would have turned the film salacious. It would have tried to push some more of these narratives that we didn't feel.
What I'm getting at, Phil? See.
And I think, this was a beautiful opportunity that the community and the technology really enabled us for there. Does that work for every film? No, we were so lucky. We had the Ethereum founder exclusively in our film.
Had a great story that needed to be told in the community. It was like a GoFundMe in a different type of format for a movie.
I think
this goes to what Tim O'Reilly also didn't see, right? Like, I think we can argue there's just both sides of this. Technology is what we make of it. It's like a hammer. You can go fucking murder a family of 5, or you can fucking build
Dual
houses
use.
for the rest of your life, right?
That's a
Like,
great story.
So I remember that story, and I was like, damn, because if when we were doing the film if I had come along at the beginning, I gave you way too much advice. But if I had come along in the beginning and the market was hot, I probably would have said, let's go float this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, GoFundMe this. This is just a different form of GoFundMe. Okay, so the movie's paid for. Now, what's that like selling this one? So it was very brutal for us. Now our movie, everybody, please, it's a this was not financial advice. You can go watch it on YouTube under the Stocktwits handle. It'll blow you away. It's free. Just go twist your mind at greed and fear. Now, this is not a greed and fear movie. This is just a documentary about a human being and technology gone good and bad. What was the uptake? How hard was it to get someone to pick this up?
Yeah, I mean, similarly challenging, right? I mean, I think the market right now, you can liken it to venture capital a little bit, where you build these products, you hope, and one in every how many gets picked up and sold for the big bucks. Otherwise, you're not making your money back, but you're just trying to reach eyeballs as much as possible. And and this film is in a similar place. Thankfully, we didn't have a ton of investors on the project to try to make back all this money, because that 1.9 million that we said was all soft money. It was all crowdfunded, not repayable. So we didn't need to have huge back end upticks on this film. It's just about reaching audience and starting conversations. And I think that's such a privilege to have with the documentary to do in this way. But the industry is running into the same challenge right now over and over again, that you take the swing. If it's not a Netflix, Apple, Amazon original, the money, that's the top tier where you can make money back. Other than that, you're just not making the money. I mean, you're putting it up on, you're getting it up on Amazon Prime streaming or Tubi or some of these ones for small license deals, right? And there's a film that was sold earlier this year to Netflix as a licensing deal, and $50K, right? $10K. And these films take $1 million to make, it often minimum.
This is the most, other than my day job, this is the most interesting thing to me. I was talking to Chad at Full Swing, who's done the Netflix show. It's just, there's a lot of arbitrary success in this business. There's a lot of talented people that never get discovered. Same thing on the internet as a general. So if you are bullish or bearish on, let's just go bullish or bearish, you two, you're going to have different answers. Netflix, bullish or bearish?
You want to go first, Zach? You want me to take it?
Oh, I'm bullish on Netflix. I mean, I think, they just have the market right now. Like, they don't care about the independent docs that I make, but like they
will if they have to. You got to understand, they will if they have to.
Yeah. But I think it's, they're figuring out what content is global. I mean, they're the only ones right now that have real global reach.
I agree. And what about YouTube?
So
let's let Zach and then you answer both.
Good.
Like, am I bullish on YouTube? Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what kids are watching. Like,
I don't think people understand. They never talk about Netflix because it got written out of Fang or whatever it was at some point. And it's just the company continues to execute. I think there's so much money in live and advertising for them. YouTube, Netflix for you, Chris. It's like, if you could pick the two, you want to pick the two that you would go after for any movie. If you could cut a deal with anybody to distribute your stuff, who would it be? HBO or Netflix? I mean, you're a artsy person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the content. Where I think, I still think HBO makes better. They have better taste, in my opinion. I think some of the stuff on there is just better quality stuff. I think sometimes, if Netflix often caters to the lowest common denominator in some of their content right now, and I think it's a bit of a mistake.
Have you met America?
For them? Yeah, I mean, and it disappoints me in our society for sure. But I'm actually a little bit more bearish on Netflix long term, because
I think we're having trouble with your connection. We're having trouble. You're a little bearish on Netflix. Give us
Go ahead. I want to hear this.
Incorrect take. Let's give us your.
I think they have to figure out how to switch their business model away from content coming up. You can see they're doing it more with gaming and other things, but content is a loss leader. It's going to be so hard to still make these shows at 300
Just
million.
remember what TV looks like and consider that's where Netflix is going. Just remember what TV looks like.
Yeah.
The programming, and that's where Netflix is going.
And where are most of those TV networks now? They're getting sold and bought for parts. You know,
right. They'll be able to make them for they'll be able to finance it at $1 versus.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think, you know, Amazon and Apple have such an advantage of having content be.
They're not going away. Great.
It's a brand play for them, and they can do this in a way that's very easy to make.
Chris, you need to write a newsletter. Zach, you could be the face of the newsletter without Grizzly Adams' face. But Chris, nobody's smarter. I mean, I don't know Zach as well. There's literally nobody smarter in the media business than my man Chris. He knows how to make a movie. He knows how to treat people well. He knows how to shop. He knows how to raise money. And he knows how to make good product. I think he says something very important. Apple and Amazon, they may be my third and fourth choice right now, but they're my third and fourth choice, which is super important. That's how much we want content. We're willing to go third and fourth channel, right? YouTube and Netflix are my go-tos, but I'm very disappointed 70% of the time with those two. And because it's just the time of day, and I have to go to the point where sometimes Hulu. So there's still a lot of opportunity in this space. Okay, Phil, let's
move on. Let's talk about China. Last quick word there. YouTube TV is fucking awesome. Like, that's all I'm going to say. Like, it's a whole platform, and it's like everything. It's amazing.
Very bullish on YouTube.
Oh, what they're doing. Okay, Michael, simple question. There's so much noise. It's a joke, right? You need to have headphones. You know, you need to have, but at the end, at the bottom line, this just seems like an epic battle. Like what's going on in our country right now just seems like the beginning or maybe the middle innings, but it's really getting, you know, heightened of an epic battle between the US and China. Is that a fair hypothesis, and why?
It's an epic battle. But most battles, you know, will get the world's attention, media's attention, people's attention, because everyone wants to know who wins, who loses. This one, if we continue the way we're going, we've lost. It's done. China is, I've said this before, what we've done in the last month, we've given them AI and tech and the ability to choose and design and guide the world to the future software and hardware platforms to come. That is what we've given them. The reason we can talk about American leadership in global technology for the last 30 years is because our companies basically gave the world Intel chips, Windows, Office, all these platforms, Facebook, WhatsApp, that the whole world runs on, Apple, where we are going in the next 5 years, because fundamentally, all we've seen of AI in the last 2 years has been the software piece. For AI to really do what it needs to do for 8 billion people, we need tons of hardware. The hardware cannot be simplistically built all in the United States, not in days, not in weeks, not in years. It's just a fundamental fact. You know, there's a lot of discussion in just the last couple of weeks, iPhones for $3,500. That's just a shorthand to explain. It's just not iPhones. It's every damn thing that we need to, whether it's our TCL TVs, we cannot do them.
Getting your
no, all of that. But that's just hardware. The point is the operating system software. That's what China has got. They already have Harmony OS for their smartphones. It's just at the beginning. It's 2007 in terms of the iPhone iOS. They're building the operating systems for the robots. You go to China, you know, just was talking to some people there. 40% of the country's their cars are EVs, and they've got software that there's maybe 1 generation, 2 generations behind Elon's FSD, but collectively, because they've got such critical mass, it's gotten way too much momentum. In other words, I remember when MS-DOS took over the world and Windows took over the world when the Mac operating system was so great. The reason MS-DOS and Windows took over the world, it was good enough. And and the software that China is going to sell to the rest of the world in their cars and the robots, etc., is good enough. And it's going to beat us in volume in a world of 8 billion people. And yeah, if we had said, okay, we'll do tariffs on China, but not on everybody else, 0-0, different picture. But we made, in 1 week, we made everyone an enemy.
Today. The EU said no deal.
No.
So here's the thing, and this is where Mike's right. He's trolling. He won the election. He's still trolling. Who was in the White House yesterday? El Salvador. Like, how seriously are we as a nation if he brought in a dictator who is dressed like Miami?
Who's going to build 5 Abu Ghraibs for us? We're going to pay him hundreds of millions of dollars. He's going to build 5 prisons where we're going to sell Americans there. Those are Abu Ghraibs.
And he said it out loud. So I'm saying, I don't watch this stuff, but like as an American, as someone who wants to work, as someone who wants to employ people, and as someone who wants to be productive, it doesn't seem productive that the president chose to have El Salvador in the White House when we're in a trade war with China, right? And so for someone who won the election and says everybody has TDS, he sure still has TDS about losing for some reason. In his head, he lost, and he's still trolling everybody. And that's not how America's going to win. America's going to win, and Elon said it. Elon's living a lie himself, and his stock price says it. Elon said you have to be very thoughtful about tariffs. So again, like, how smart is Elon if Trump just dismisses the most important thing? How smart is Trump if he dismisses the most important thing that Elon has said, right? And Elon can fucking troll and do whatever he wants, but his shareholders are paying the price. Elon is not being serious at this point. For the one moment he was serious on Joe Rogan, go listen to it, because he fucking understands supply chain. Okay, he may not understand. He may be autistic and doesn't understand how to fire people and how to run an operation, but he sure as hell knows how shit moves through the world, because he's had to fucking go kill people and himself be threatened to be killed to build the fucking machine that is Tesla. And Trump's throwing it out the window with him in the office. So again, we don't have a very serious take on this, and China is going to kick our ass. We could argue they were going to kick our ass anyways, like Brad Gerstner and very smart people like Gurley, who are much more serious than any of the other people out there, right? Who are playing politics because they have a big book, right? And they're traders and they're investors, are also, on board with saying this is stupid at this point. China's a serious threat. Treat them as such. Don't spend every minute. If you're going to start a war, focus on the war. Don't focus on stupid stuff. So, Mike, I mean, this is brutal, but at the same time, ChatGPT continues to like wedge in further. Chris and Zach, are you ChatGPT guys? When you're doing, what AI products are you using to do your job on a day-to-day basis to speed things up?
Oh, I'm very excited about what AI is going to do in the film industry. I know people are freaked out, but I think it's a complementary technology.
No, it's very common. But what are you guys using? Are you using ChatGPT or are you using certain other products?
I use GPT the most, daily, but also, you can use it.
I mean, we use it a bunch.
Things, but
sound design, it's kind of supporting the edit basically is mostly where we use AI, like that AI, like there's all these different kind of AI products now that are kind of being integrated into the edit.
You want to quickly, we shot almost 300 hours for Vitalik and Ethereum Story, the film, right? You need to quickly go through transcripts, pull certain lines, find keywords, and man, ChatGPT is helpful. It's such a bogged down system until you can have something that can go through it quickly for you and help you get your true vision and thoughts out faster.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here, Mike, is what Mike, you said is chat. Within the war, ChatGPT continues to do a great job of winning the battles, right? The daily battles of launching product and staying way ahead of Grok. Now, because again, I don't think it's just about what's the best product. It's about who's using it the most, and because it's going to get better. So this becomes more about what product you're using, and I would say 99% of the people that I talk to are ChatGPT. Obviously, there's complementary products, but
yeah. And by the way, their innovation on just constantly improving the product. We talked about the image stuff just a couple of weeks ago. They just introduced more reasoning stuff, etc. Sam hinted at the momentum. Their last published number was 500 million users monthly. He's basically hinted at TED, it's over $1 billion. It's just growing dramatically faster than it has in the last 2 years. And that is all because of the confluence of what Chris and Zach, people are finding utility in the number one brand. There are 6 other brands, but the leadership always goes to the top 1 or 2 when the market really sees the product market fit, and we are at that point.
And I think for me too, like they were first, and in some ways, like I got used to it, and you get that brand, you start to get that brand loyalty again. Once you go mass, it's hard to switch.
Yeah. So I was saying the number one thing that I noticed, guys, about ChatGPT, and we'll go to the charts, we'll end, Phil, but is in finance, right? Like the number one thing you shouldn't be using ChatGPT for is finance, right? Because it's hallucinating. You can't afford to be wrong with numbers. Yet we, in the Stocktwits Cash Tag Award, when we took it to a vote around FinTwit and Stocktwits over true financial products like FinChat, which we're an investor in, which is a wrapper, which is the exact way to use ChatGPT, a wrapper with real data, people still will use FinChat. So meaning, even when it's not the right product to use, and this is why you have to just not be mad, you have to just look at the data. Even if it's not the right product to use, people are still using it. Why? Because they assume it'll get better. It's just built into their workflow in a way that it's just fun. And hard to argue with that. So yeah, I have to say, as bearish as it was on the price of the idea, you can see, you got to appreciate the execution. And this is all with China. So where does China fit into this? If China is the ultimate winner with ChatGPT,
so we live in the world of ChatGPT here. What we don't see,
it doesn't affect.
No. Their language models are coming on fast. DeepSeek has taken over Alibaba. I just wrote a piece on Alibaba in terms of what they're going to compete in the super app category. China is the world leader in WeChat, with this super app that all of the companies, Zuckerberg, Elon, are all wanting to create a super app. So there's a huge amount of LLMs that are good enough, not as good as ChatGPT, but good enough for China. That stuff will get exported because of this trade dynamic that we're talking about. That the Europeans are already shutting off the U.S. Tech companies on all of these trade issues, IP control, etc. Well, guess what? The open source DeepSeek, it'll take over Europe, etc. It's this business of, again, Windows beats Mac, even though Mac gave us the graphical user interface 5 years earlier. So oftentimes it's the good enough thing wins, and that's the thing I'm watching over the next. We're early. China hasn't broken out outside the world, but guess what? With TikTok, they have. TikTok is an AI product, and their algorithm is so much better than YouTube Shorts and Reels.
Yeah,
and they've done it with good enough.
Hey, Michael, does China open up? Does China open up as we close off? Like, is there that
relatively? They're already. Think about it, Phil. Think about how screwed up we are. We started a trade war with China. Well, we still have Chinese vapes coming in our country, destroying young kids, and we still have probably the fentanyl problem coming in from China. And the most important problem we have from China in our negotiations with the rest of the world is TikTok. If we don't kick out TikTok, what leverage do we have to go to Europe saying you can't trust China? They control your mind. We haven't even kicked out TikTok. So where do we come in and say you should trust Google and Meta over TikTok when we still haven't kicked out TikTok? So
we should not kick out TikTok. I just came back. We should not kick out TikTok. I came from India. India kicked out TikTok 3 years ago. Guess what? Their tech and AI business is 5 years behind now, because the technology wasn't there for their entrepreneurs to be inspired to beat it.
I'm just saying it out. I'm saying it doesn't go with the rest of our argument.
No, I'm just so to Phil's question, his business of this business of China opening up, we're focused on the wrong thing. It's not about our technologies working in China. I don't give a hoot about Facebook in China. What I'm trying to say is that China, over the last 5 years, has been the only successful company that I've seen in 40 years of watching technology, taking their technology and making it successful around the world, outside the United States, and outside the United States, outside of China. Temu, Shein, totally whooped Amazon, Target, Walmart in America's e-commerce markets and so on. Billions of people were using those e-commerce things way before, and it started with the shipping loophole, etc. TikTok, same thing. 2-3 billion people using it in terms of literally moving away from social networks based on who you know, who you follow, to what content you follow. It's just extraordinary, the technology thing of it, and it's being used by the rest of the world. So, Phil, to your question, this China opening up, China's mentality is basically, we will take our technology, and if it works, we'll just sell it to everybody else around the world, and it'll be good enough, it'll be cheap, etc., and you can adopt it. DeepSeek has been adopted faster than most people realize because it's open source. They literally, China's making $0 of it. Zero. and DeepSeek is making $0, but people are using it open source to run machine learning, and that's what's really going to compete with ChatGPT. And Chris and Zach, in a year or two, will likely to tell us that they're using some version of DeepSeek technology embedded in Perplexity or something instead of ChatGPT, because it's cheaper. There's fewer API fees, and so China can and there China will not have the glory. What I'm trying to say is Chinese entrepreneurs is what I'm respecting here, as opposed to the Chinese government. I couldn't give a hoot about Xi. I couldn't give a hoot about the CCP. I don't care if they're closed versus open. It's just that their entrepreneurs are some of the best entrepreneurs I've seen, bar none.
Okay.
A company called Unitree. No one, most people here don't know what this is. Unitree is the sexiest robot company on the planet. Founder, same Bill Gates types of ethos. They've got half a dozen founder CEOs that, in 10, 15 years will be respected in the same way that we respect Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, etc. But they're not household names because we think of them as China. We think of them as CCP, Xi. Xi is going to be gone. He's going to be dead and buried in 10 years. Okay. The impact is on the technology. These entrepreneurs are driving technology that is permeating the world, and that's the battle. And America has that opportunity to take that back by making the world our friend again, and from a leadership point of view. And it's not too late. But currently, we've chosen this path
As
for
far away as we've been in 80
Yeah.
years.
It's getting a little late.
Seeing El Salvador in the White House was really bizarre. All right, Phil.
Okay, let's go to Tom. Tom, give us 3 charts, your 3 favorite charts that you're looking at right now. Just give it to us. We're running late as we always do.
Yeah,
but just give it to us.
Keith, let's go to slide 9. We'll do the Stocktwits Sentiment Index. So we rolled this out over the weekend in the daily rip. Basically, this is a good way to measure what's happening on the platform, how bearish or bullish people are in real time. Last week, we saw the index hit a new high. So people are still bearish. People are still looking for further downside. And I think it comes back to the point we made earlier, right? If you're a trader, this is a trading environment. If you're an investor, you're still thinking out 3, 6, 12 months from now. You're like, how do I understand what the earnings of the companies I want to buy are going to be? So lots of trading opportunities in this washout, but we're not seeing a wholesale like, hey, we need to be in there and buying. We're seeing a lot of people just taking trades as opposed to making longer term.
I think where we nailed this, and we didn't nail it, the community nailed this, is Tom wrote this up. We tend to be individual. The hobbyists, the people on Stocktwits tend to be the grinders, the hobbyists, the people that the mutts, the bad news bears, the people that like comb through stuff, but also just look at charts. It's just the mutt, right? Like Phil, it's you, me, Bruni. It's people who just geek out on this shit. So we're not in the indexes as much. So when we crossed through 1, it was a leading indicator. It doesn't always work, but it was a leading indicator of negativity. And now it's not relenting. So again, I'm a little more suspect of the Stocktwits community being this negative, but they've been right directionally. And so I'm going to stay careful. Like, I can't believe how long this has stayed elevated historically versus COVID. I think the other thing versus COVID, you have to go back and look at COVID, is like the world was working against an enemy. We botched it up as best we could with COVID, but we could all agree that COVID was the enemy, and we threw whatever we had at it. It created all kinds of unintended circumstances, but you could see how quickly the VIX fell. We said, we're going to fucking throw money at the supply chain issue as a world. We're going to try and keep deaths down. We're going to source mass wherever they may be. And then we flash forward to 2025, the same type of issue, except instead of saying you can have masks, we're saying we're not letting you have masks. Why would we take masks from China? We're not going to bring home our prisoner. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court said. So these things are piling up, and it's like, it doesn't matter that Elon Musk says we need to be thoughtful about tariffs. He's on Doji, so like we're all in on Trump. So it seems like we're all just diving deeper and deeper into a supply chain mess, which is the exact supply chain mess that happened in 2020. And here we are with the Stocktwits audience, same amount of data, the same amount of knowledge, maybe a little bit bigger audience with more knowledge because they've seen the COVID crash. And here we are, more negative than we were in COVID. So again, I'm having trouble taking much data away from this time around because it's breaking all kinds of things that I'm used to seeing. So that's my read on this one. And it's a fascinating index.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted.
The real read will be here when this starts to pull back. That's when people on our platform start to see bullish setups in individual stocks. Yeah. So like if we look at fund flow data, people are continuing to buy the indexes. I think VOO, the Vanguard S&P ETF, saw like 50 billion in inflows last week, like massive levels. So retail as a whole is buying the dip, but if we're looking at individual stocks, which the Stocktwits community is focused on, they're still seeing a lot of risk out there and are taking trades.
And this is how we're a little different than the VIX. The VIX measures the volatility in the movement, and that's why I was telling my kids themselves to buy the indexes last week, and my wife. But me, I'm not doing it yet. I did a little bit, but I'm not doing more because I'm looking at the Stocktwits sentiment and going, these single stock players, the single game player, whatever you call these gamers, are like seeing something, and they're seeing it in the new low index. They're seeing it in their stock portfolio, and it's not pretty. And the bounces that we've gotten have been in defense stocks and in gold. And that is not what growth is made of. Okay. And it's not good growth. If defense is all we're spending on, what comes after that spend is not going to be pretty. So again, there is growth to be had in war and weapons. Why? Because we fucking have the wrong weapons, right? Go watch A24's Warfare, by the way, which I went to see this weekend. That'll fucking change your mind. A24 did a piece on a small battle in 2006 Iraq.
Great movie.
Fucking blow your mind of how overpowered we are for the wrong war, right? And Israel's fighting that war right now in Gaza, which is a drone and robot war. You're not going to win these wars with human beings anymore. So again, we're spending money for the right, probably because we have to spend money on defense, right? But I don't like that that's the only industry moving up. So indexes, the Stocktwits Sentiment Index, finally really excited to have it. Everybody on the internet, this is a unique take on the VIX. We'll have it up on the site regularly. Most of the time, it's not important, but over the last few months, it's been very important to help positioning.
And
Tom, you got another one?
Show weekly. Yeah, I think given the uncertainty, let's end with chart 2, gold. I've seen this going a lot around. Different time frames, 20 years. This one is from the 2000 peak. So you got gold outperforming, the S&P. My
joke here is, why do we even need Silicon Valley? Like, what's the point of having Silicon Valley if gold's outperformed it?
Go ahead, Michael.
By the way, if we were in Egypt in whatever, we'd be a dynasty 7,000 years ago. So it's really quite nice.
Yeah, my point on this chart, I love this chart. Thanks, Tom, for bringing it up. And Howard, you tweeted this as well. It's a dramatic chart. The only thing is, I'm going to put the Warren Buffett adjustment. And I went and redid the data. If you adjust the S&P with dividend reinvesting compounding, S&P beats gold. 11 to 12% versus 8% on gold. Just FYI.
I think
from my math
obviously
point of
the
view.
framing of this chart, it's been going a lot around.
It's just one piece of data that's can lie as much as it is. But I think what we're saying here is it's not good to see gold exponentially going higher.
Well, listen. Howard, like gold broke out at 1900 or 2000, 18 months ago, and there was skepticism all along the way. Yeah. We're starting to see institutions now, given all the uncertainty, start to recommend gold. I think
Goldman raised put a 4,500 target on it.
Yeah, 4,500 target. But interestingly enough, we did a poll over the weekend on Stocktwits, and we asked, how are you playing the gold rally? I think it's slide number 11 or 12, but It was either gold miners, junior miners, or no, I'm not playing the rally. And 60% of people said they're not playing the gold rally.
Of course
So
they're not, because
there's
they don't
still
know
a
what
lot
it
of
means.
skepticism around.
Yeah, and they've been taught not to chase. I think the one last chart is the cash position of Warren Buffett. I think when you really realize, I think one of Trump's biggest mistakes in the end will be not sitting down with Warren. We have to solve this crisis. Okay, we need to solve the money multiplier crisis. We're in a money detraction crisis. The banks are negative. Everybody's thinking we're going into recession. Mood eventually leads spend, right? Like you can get faked out by mood, but eventually mood just stifles spend. Didn't buy the house because I didn't want to spend the money on Home Depot. Didn't upgrade the house. Didn't want to fucking spend 30% more on my materials and have it take a year to get my fridge. So stop spending gets put off. This is the guy who's been hoarding cash. Again, it's not going to save anybody, but he can go buy how many companies? He can buy how many of the S&P 500 companies?
It was like 467. It's like
he can buy 467 of the S&P 500 companies. That money is unproductive sitting in US T-bills with the government paying him interest on a guy who doesn't even want that to happen. And yet he, not El Salvador, should be in the White House right now talking about this. Not because money matters more than the prisoner, but because we have a president focused on clicks and getting him to stand up and say, I'm ready to put cash to work is how you get bottoms, right? It's how we bottomed in 2009. It's how bottoms were made in 2020, is to get the people with the cash to say, you know what, this is a good environment to put cash to work. I don't know how we solve it otherwise. Mike,
go ahead, Michael.
No, and just going back to our first chart where we looked at the 20% down on the market, and is it time to buy, etc. To me, the day I pay attention to the market from a bottom picking point of view is when Warren makes his first move.
Yeah. He might have already made it. We won't hear about it for 60 more days. He might have.
Yeah, when he does, that is a signal. I mean, when he bought a piece of Goldman in 2008, that was the signal. Just buy anything and everything at that point. And
so again,
I
think VIX 60, you had to do some buying. That's the textbook, but it's not 100% win rate. And so you're looking.
No, I love that. VIX 60 is a good number. VIX 60, then VIX 70, 80, but those will be very, very scary.
What I'm saying is it's not a perfect number. Right? It doesn't mean go back to work. We'll go back to work when Warren and a few of these other things happen. Phil?
So we're going to wrap this up. I just have a last word. I just want to talk about, I want to end on a positive note, right? So we're entering a period of explicit self-reliance in this country, right? Nobody's taking care of you. And the greatest example of how to behave, how to stick with it, occurred this past weekend at the Masters in Georgia, in Augusta, Georgia, where Rory McIlroy for 11 years has been trying to win the Masters to complete a career Grand Slam, year after year of disappointment. He comes in, plays a couple great rounds, 2 and 3. He's ahead by 2 strokes coming to the last round. No more pressure could ever be on anybody. He double bogeys the first hole and looks like he's falling apart. He double bogeys again on the 13th. And then he blows a 6-foot putt on 18 to win it. And then in the playoff, he birdies and he wins the whole thing. I mean, just an incredible, the guy stuck with it. The guy never gave up. The guy showed incredible grit, incredible backbone, incredible class. And he is a great role model for everybody watching. If you're young and you're watching this and you're Gen Z and people, all the oldsters always are negative on the kids, no matter what. That transcends generations. That's forever. But if you're hearing that you're soft, if you're hearing, the pronouns and you're soft and you don't have an attention span anymore because of TikTok, F all of that noise and just go look at a guy like Rory McIlroy, who's teaching you, only 35 years old for golf, but not old in the world, teaching you how to have the stick-to-itiveness, to have the grit, to never give up, to believe in yourself, just an incredible story and an incredible role model for everybody, not just Gen Z, but everybody. For myself, I'm going to turn 58 in June, and for me as well. Incredible role model.
Howard, you're muted.
Sorry, Rick Eisen did an incredible, again, he's got a serious show. It's a very funny guy. Rick Eisen show, go watch. He did about a 15-minute monologue as a golfer, a fan of what it was like for Rory. It was spectacular. And then he had some great golf guests on. And then go watch, along Phil's line, go watch Justin Rose's interview. You know, to have to go do that interview, and it was such a professional way to handle an interview. And as big a Bryson fan as I am, obviously I'm an investor in his company. I think he muffed it a little bit, and not just his playing, but in his post-game interview. So there's so much that can happen around this. It really was the best. No phones at the Masters, yet everybody had fun. People were cheering 10 minutes after the fact because they weren't getting the data. It's kind of like Paul Revere. People were running around because they don't have phones. So news was spreading in the old-fashioned way, right? With hushes and then explosions of noise 20 minutes later. Whereas the fans, we knew it was going to happen, and we would hear the cheers because they didn't have their phones 20 minutes later. So it's really one of the greatest American events. But yeah, Rick Eisen, Justin Rose also, Phil did a great job of just the humanity and the losing. You know, he really won. He just came in second, right? Like, you know, but no one remembers second place. So he had the winning interview, I think. And Rory, you can see all the stuff he's been covering up, right? Like he's been trying to just downplay how nightmarish this has been. I think that was the humanity of this thing, is like he was trying to cover it up, but every single person who's cynical, including me, was like, dude, this got to be a heavy weight. And then he wins, and you can feel the heavy weight being lifted. And all he's ever going to talk about for the rest of his life is how fucked that weight was if he hadn't won yesterday. So it was kind of probably the best moment so far in 2025. So I agree with that one.
Great role model for all of us in this age. Zach and Chris, amazing as usual. Great luck today and after, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Enjoy the film.
Adios, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you.